ChatGPT said. The room still hummed with excitement as Denise's steps faded from the polished floor. Conversations circled back to her dance, voices filled with admiration and surprise.
Oh.
Denise stood by the refreshments, her emerald dress glowing. In the soft light, she felt a warm flush of pride as guests approached her, praising her grace and talent. Yet even as she accepted compliments, her mind churned with questions. What did Marcus Vale feel now? Would he sidestep her entirely, or muster the courage to apologize? As Denise sipped her water, she noticed Marcus standing alone near the tall windows. He stared at the rain-dappled cityscape outside, his silhouette framed by the city lights shimmering like distant stars. His broad shoulders slumped with a weight of regret. Denise's heart softened at the sight. He had put her on display. For a joke, but then, perhaps he'd seen something in her that surprised him as much as the guests. Gathering her courage, Denise left the table and walked toward him. She navigated between small clusters of guests, offering polite nods to those who smiled at her. She reached Marcus after a few moments. He did not turn at first. His gaze remained fixed on the skyline. Denise cleared her throat softly. "Mr. Vale," she said, her voice steady. "May I have a word?" Marcus turned, surprise flickering in his eyes. For a moment, he looked unsure whether to speak or flee. Finally, he nodded. "Miss Carter," he said, "thank you for coming." Denise offered him a gentle smile. "Thank you for inviting me." She replied, "I'm glad I could dance tonight." Marcus ran a hand through his hair, brushing back a curl that had caught on his forehead. "I owe you an apology," he said. "I asked you up here as part of a joke. That was thoughtless and mean. You did not deserve that." Denise studied his face, noting the sincerity in his tone. She nodded slowly. "I forgive you," she said. "I understand you wanted to entertain your guests, but you underestimated me. I hope you see now that I can stand on my own 2 feet." Marcus exhaled and offered a small, rueful smile. "I certainly do," he said, "and I'm sorry I made you feel anything less than respected." He paused, then continued more softly. "Your dance, it was beautiful. I've seen many performances, but something about your steps felt honest. It wasn't just skill, it was heart." Denise felt her chest swell with warmth at his words. "I learned to dance to bring joy," she said, "to myself first and to others. That's why I teach the children at my community center. They find confidence in movement, too." Marcus nodded. "I see that," he said. "Tell me more." "About your center?" Denise's eyes brightened. "It's a small place in the West End. We have a donated piano and a few second-hand painting easels. But the kids come every day after school. They paint, they sing, they dance. It doesn't matter how good they are at first. We focus on joy." "I'd like to help," Marcus said, his tone earnest. "Perhaps we can find a way to expand your program. Better space, better equipment. I can't undo my mistake, but I want to support what you're doing." Denise blinked, taken aback. She had not expected a promise of help just now. "Mr. Vale, that's very kind of you," she said. "But please, call me Denise." Marcus smiled. "Denise," he repeated. "If you'll let me, I'd like to visit your center, see it for myself, meet the children." Denise hesitated, thinking of the crowded, humble room where she taught. She imagined Marcus's polished shoes scuffing the scuffed wooden floor. But she saw the genuine interest in his eyes and felt hopeful for her students. "I'd be honored," she said. "Just let me know when." They talked a little longer about music, about art, about the idea of community and how people pooled their gifts to create something greater. As their conversation deepened, Denise felt a bridge form between their very different worlds. Gala around them continued, but they had stepped into a quieter space, one crafted by shared passion rather than charity. Eventually, Denise glanced at her watch. She realized hours had passed since the dance. She was tired, but it was a good kind of tired, the kind that comes from heart and purpose.
Oh.
She smiled at Marcus. "I should get back to the others," she said. "Thank you again for everything." Marcus bowed slightly. "Thank you, Denise," he said. "Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I'll be in touch about visiting the center." Denise returned to the crowd, her steps lighter than before. Guests still talked about her dance, but now, too, they noted her conversation with Marcus Vale. Whispers spread that the billionaire had been moved, that he promised new investments for a grassroots program. One board member patted Denise on the back, her words full of excitement. "He really means it. I saw it in his eyes." Later, as the gala wound down, Denise prepared to leave. She gathered her purse and coat, pausing at the exit to look back at the shimmering hall. The chandeliers still gleamed, but now they reminded her of something more than wealth. They reminded her of a spotlight she had earned and the power of standing tall in one's truth. The following morning, Denise arrived at the community center before her students. She unlocked the front door and flicked on the lights, letting the dusty beams of morning sun filter through tall windows. Paintbrushes lay in a jar on a table, their bristles stiff with dried color. A piano stood in one corner, its keys yellowed. But waiting to sing once more? Denise smiled and began her daily routines, sweeping the floor, arranging art supplies, and setting fresh water in the studio to wash brushes. She thought of last night's gala as she wiped the wooden benches. She thought of the gasp of the audience when she tapped her first step. She thought of Marcus's apology and promise. She felt grateful for the chance to shine, for the respect she'd earned, and for the new opportunities that may come. As children arrived, their laughter echoing down the sidewalk, Denise greeted them with open arms. One by one, they entered, their backpacks bumping against their shoulders, their eyes bright with curiosity. They admired her emerald dress from the night before and asked, "Did you dance for real?" Denise laughed softly and replied, "Yes, I did. And soon, you'll see me dance right here too." The children gathered around her, chattering about art projects and songs they wanted to learn. Denise knelt to speak with them at eye level, guiding them gently to their spots. She handed a paintbrush to a shy girl with braided hair and offered music notes to a boy who loved rhythms. As the morning sunlight grew stronger, Denise led the first Lasena, simple rhythm exercise. She tapped out a beat on the wooden floor, and the children followed, clapping their hands. Their faces lit up as they found the pulse, their hearts syncing with her gentle instruction. In that studio, Denise felt the same energy she had on the ballroom floor, but here, it was more powerful. Here, every child who discovered movement or art discovered a part of themselves. Here, laughter and creativity transformed lives. Here, the ripple of one dance step could inspire an entire community. And so part 2 of Denise's true life story unfolded a story of resilience, of bridging worlds, and of how one courageous step could ignite change far beyond a glittering gala. In the humble rooms of her community center, she taught children to dance, to paint, and to believe. And in doing so, she showed that true grace is born not of privilege, but of heart. ChatGPT said. The grand hall buzzed with quiet excitement as guests in elegant gowns and tailored, no suits mingled under crystal chandeliers. Soft light danced on polished marble floors and gilded walls, casting a warm glow over the sea of well-dressed strangers. At the far end of the room, a long table shimmered with silver trays of delicate dervastini sandwiches, fruit tarts and cheese skewers arranged like jewels. Servers wearing crisp white jackets moved gracefully through, the crowd offering glasses of champagne that caught the light as they passed overhead. Marcus Vale stood near the entrance, the heavy velvet curtains behind him swaying gently in a breeze from hidden vents. He wore a midnight blue tuxedo that fit him perfectly, the silk lapels shining against his white shirt, his salt and pepper. Hair was neatly combed back, and he wore an easy smile that suggested both confidence and habit. Tonight, he was the host and the star, the man whose name appeared in every charity announcement and whose wealth built many of the charitable foundations. Receiving applause this evening. Across the room, Denise Carter watched the scene with a calm smile on her face. She wore a flowing emerald dress that complemented her warm skin tone and graceful curves. Her hair was styled in loose curls that framed her face, and a simple silver necklace rested at her throat. She had agreed to attend the gala at the invitation of one of the foundation's board members, who admired her work running a community center that taught art and music to children. Denise's volunteer efforts had helped hundreds of young people, giving them hope and a creative outlet after school. As she stood beside a tall, round table covered with a crisp white cloth, Denise felt both honored and a bit out of place. The community center she ran was modest, with hand-me-down paint and second-hand instruments. Tonight's glittering luxury was a world apart from the humble rooms where she taught painting to wide-eyed kids. Yet she had reminded herself that this event was not about opulence. It was a chance to meet people who might support her programs, maybe even secure funding for after-school supplies and music lessons. Denise lifted a small plate of canap to her mouth and bit into a pastry filled with goat cheese and sun-dried tomato. The flavors mingled on her tongue in a surprising burst of tangy sweetness. A soft laugh escaped her when she realized she was savoring a food she rarely if you would laugh at in her busy life. She glanced around and caught sight of a tall waiter refilling champagne glasses. The bubbles rose like tiny fireworks in each flute, and she could feel the energy in the room shift whenever a new tray made its way through a cluster of guests. On the other side of the hall, Marcus glanced at his watch, checking the schedule he had reviewed dozens of times. He had arranged for a surprise performance later in the evening, something to dazzle donors and encourage larger gifts. But first, he wanted to introduce a little unexpected fun. He scanned the crowd, looking for someone who could provide amusement without revealing his true aim, to bring laughter with a harmless spectacle. His gaze rested on Denise as she laughed at a joke someone told her, her eyes shining with genuine joy. She seemed approachable, unsuspecting, and he guessed unlikely to refuse. Leaning close to his assistant, Marcus whispered in a low tone. She nodded and moved away, slipping through the guests until she stood before Denise. "Ms. Carter?" she asked. "What?" Denise turned and saw the assistant's polite smile. "Mr. Vale would be honored if you would dance with him right now at center stage. It's part of the evening's special entertainment." Denise's heart fluttered at the mention of Mr. Vale's name. She had heard of him, of course. Everyone had. But she had never expected to share the spotlight with him. Denise hesitated for a moment, glancing at her plate in her hand as if unsure what etiquette demanded. The assistant offered a steadying nod and held out her hand with the invitation repeated. Denise set her plate down on the table and took a breath. She smoothed the fabric of her dress, willing herself to smile. "Of course," she said softly, her voice steady, even though her pulse quickened. Wrapping her fingers around the assistant's, she allowed herself to be guided forward. The orchestra's music softened as the conductor raised his baton. Conversations dropped to murmurs, and a hush settled over the crowd. Denise felt the eyes of every man and woman in the hall turn toward her. She swallowed, feeling a mix of pride and anxiety. The grand chandelier above her seemed to glow brighter, as if the room itself were focused on this moment. She took a step onto the parquet floor, her heels clicking gently against the wood. When she reached the center, Marcus waited for her with a slight bow. His polished shoes reflected the lights, and he extended his hand with a smooth, practiced motion. Denise placed her hand in his, surprised at the firmness of his grip. She met his gaze for a moment, noting the calm expression on his face. Had he always intended to invite her this way? Was this truly for her, or for the amusement of others? Denise decided it did not matter. She would dance. She owed that much to herself, to the children she taught, and to the generous donors, who had made this evening possible. The conductor gave a small nod, and the music changed. A slow jazz melody filled the hall, its soft horns and gentle percussion weaving a cushion of sound under Denise's feet. She closed her eyes for an instant, letting the rhythm settle in her bones. Then she opened them and looked at Marcus, offering him a polite smile. He began to guide her through simple steps, measured, deliberate moves that matched the tempo. Denise's nerves started to loosen. She recalled the hours she had spent teaching dance classes at the community center to young students who looked up to her. She remembered how those children learned to move with joy, without fear of judgment. Now she allowed herself to sink into the music, to feel the notes flow around her. Her shoulders relaxed, and her steps grew sure. As the pair moved in tandem, heads turned from snickers to surprise. Marcus's confident smile shifted as he noticed the beauty in her movement. Denise's emerald dress swirled around her legs, with each turn catching the light and leaving a trail of green in her wake. Her feet tapped in perfect time on the polished floor, each step clear and precise. It was a dance born from practice and heartfelt passion, not from a desire to perform, but from a love of movement. Guests gasped softly. Some whispered too, their neighbors. Who knew she could dance like that? Others reached for their phones, their cameras flickering as they recorded the unexpected performance. Denise felt a swell of pride but kept her focus on the music and her steps. The floor seemed to rise up to support her, carrying her confidently through each move she knew from her years of teaching those children. She felt strong, graceful, and alive. Marcus, for his part, found himself struggling to keep up. He tried to match her rhythm but stumbled slightly, his practiced composure cracking for a moment. The audience shifted from laughter to applause as they sensed the true spirit of the dance. Denise lifted her chin and let a soft smile bloom on her face. She was no longer the subject of a joke. She was a dancer sharing her art with the world. As the last notes of the song lingered in the air, Denise took a final step and ended in a poised stance. She held Marcus's hand for a brief moment longer before releasing it. The audience rose to its feet, clapping and cheering with genuine admiration. Denise felt her cheeks flush with joy. Applause felt like warm sunlight, and she stood there, breathing deeply, letting the moment fill her. Marcus bowed low, his own expression sincere. He nodded toward Denise, as if acknowledging the gift she had given the room. He then stepped back, giving her space in the center of the floor. The orchestra struck a single chord, and the crowd's cheers rolled like waves. Denise inclined her head in gratitude, and, as the applause continued, she walked off the dance floor, with her head held high. Back by the refreshment table, Denise retrieved her glass of water and held it to her lips. She felt a rush of happiness she had not expected tonight. People began to approach her with congratulations, board members she knew, and strangers alike. Their words were warm and kind, telling her how much they enjoyed her dance. Denise smiled and thanked each person. She thought of the children waiting at the community center tomorrow, their eyes bright with hope. And she realized this evening's surprise had become a new chance to show them what was possible. And so the gala continued, but the memory of Denise's first step lingered in every conversation. A simple dance had transformed an awkward moment into something beautiful, and she had danced it with dignity, grace, and heart. The morning sun streamed through cracked windows as Denise unlocked the door to the community center. The air smelled faintly of paint and sawdust. She stepped inside and hung her coat on a peg by the door. The empty room felt quiet and still, but she knew soon it would burst with color and sound. Today felt different. Today Marcus Vale was coming to visit. Denise moved across the wooden floor, pausing to touch the chipped paint on a windowsill. She remembered the gala's grand lights and the hush when she first danced. She faced a new challenge, showing Marcus the heart of her humble center. She straightened tables and chairs, lining them up with care. She placed jars of clean water and fresh brushes at each station. She checked the old piano. Its keys were a little sticky, but they made a warm, honest sound when she pressed them. She smiled, thinking of the children's faces when they played those notes. Outside, a black sedan rolled up to the curb. Denise watched through the window as the door opened, and a tall man stepped out in a fitted suit. Marcus Vale stood under the doorway, shaded by the battered awning. His eyes met Denise's through the glass, and he gave her a polite nod. Denise felt her heart flutter. She took a deep breath and opened the door. "Welcome," she said, smiling. "I'm so glad you're here." Marcus returned the smile, though it was a little shy. "Thank you for having me," he said. "I'm eager to see this place you talk about." They walked inside together. The room looked smaller than he expected, but it felt alive with possibility. Paintings hung on the walls, bright abstracts and careful sketches. A row of chairs sat near a low stage area. Denise led him to a table where art supplies lay. "This is where we paint," she explained. She lifted a brush and held it sideways. "The kids learn to mix colors, to see beauty in simple things." Marcus knelt beside her, examining the brushes. "These look well used," he said. "They tell a story." Denise nodded. "Every brush has a memory, a child's first painting, shy hand that found confidence." Before he could reply, Footsteps echoed through the hallway. A group of children appeared, ages 7 to 12. Their eyes widened at the sight of Marcus, and they fell silent. Denise stood in front of them. "Good morning," she called, her voice bright. "This is Mr. Vale. He's here to see your center." The children shuffled forward. A tall girl in a red sweater raised her hand. "Are you the billionaire?" she asked shyly. Marcus knelt to her level. "I am," he said. "Gently, I heard great things about your art and dance." The girl smiled. Another boy crossed his arms. "Can you paint?" he asked. Marcus laughed softly. "I'm not very good, but I'd love to learn." Denise guided the children to their places. She handed each a brush and a small canvas. "Let's show Mr. Vale what we do," she said. "Paint something that makes you happy." The children dipped their brushes into bright paints. Marcus watched Denise as she moved among them, offering gentle encouragement. A boy shaped clouds in soft blue. A girl painted music notes floating like balloons. A younger child added polka dots to a butterfly's wings. Denise's eyes shone as she praised each work. Marcus felt a warmth spread in his chest. He reached for a brush himself and dabbed a spot of yellow paint on a scrapped canvas. He tried to draw a simple sun, but his lines wobbled. The children giggled kindly. Denise placed her hand on his back. "It's beautiful," she said. Marcus smiled at her kindness. He set down the brush and rose. "This is wonderful," he said. "You've built something special here." Denise led him to the next room, where a small stage waited. The wooden boards looked worn but sturdy. "This is our dance space," she explained. "Practice tap, jazz, and even a little ballet." She tapped her foot softly on the floor, making a clear sound. "Hear that? Every tap leaves a mark, just like every child here leaves a mark on my heart." In that moment, one of the older girls, about 12, stepped forward. Her name was Maya, and she had watched Denise dance at the gala. "Ms. Carter," she said proudly, "can I show Mr. Vale some steps?" Denise nodded. "Of course." Maya slipped off her shoes and took position. The room was quiet except for the soft tapping as she began. Her movements were graceful but confident. She tapped in time, spun, and clicked her heels with precision. Marcus's eyes widened. He watched Maya as she danced a short routine Denise had taught her. When Maya finished, Marcus applauded. "Amazing," he said. "You'll learn from the best." Denise put a hand on Maya's shoulder. "She works hard," she said. "Practice makes confidence." Marcus turned to Denise. "I want this center to grow," he said quietly. "I want more children to feel this joy." Denise swallowed, her eyes misting. "I have plans," she said. "A bigger room, better floors, new instruments and paints. But I need funds, and I need a team." Marcus nodded. "Tell me what you need. I'll help." Denise took a breath and laid out her wish list. She spoke of peeling walls that needed fresh paint, of broken chairs that had to be replaced. She spoke of the piano, which needed tuning, and the dance floor, which would be safer with new wood. She spoke of hiring a second teacher, so no child went without instruction. Marcus listened, his brow furrowed. When she finished, he leaned back. "Let's start with the floor," he said. "A good dance floor will lift every step, every heart. Then we can fix the walls and buy supplies." Denise nodded, imagining the sleek new boards under her students' feet. "Thank you," she said, her voice soft with gratitude. That afternoon, volunteers arrived with paint rollers and wood planks. Marcus had arranged for a local contractor to help. Denise watched as the old floor was lifted and new wood installed. She saw how the room transformed, how the walls brightened under fresh color, how the stage sparkled again. Children gathered. At the doorway, their eyes wide in wonder. Denise took Maya's hand and led her inside. "What do you think?" she asked. Maya's face lit up. "It's like a dream," she whispered. "It's perfect." Over the next weeks, Denise and Marcus worked side by side. He visited after his board meetings, bringing new supplies and lending an ear to Denise's ideas. He learned the children's names, their favorite colors, their shy smiles. He saw how art and dance changed them, how a boy who barely spoke found his voice through painting, how a quiet girl gained confidence with every tap of her shoe. One Saturday morning, Denise organized an open house. Parents, neighbors, and local reporters gathered. The remodeled center shone with fresh paint and polished floors. Tables held art, and the stage was set for dance. Denise welcomed everyone. "This center belongs to our whole community," she said. "Today we share what we've built together." A line formed as each child presented a painting. The crowd admired the bright landscapes, the swirling patterns, the fearless colors. Maya stepped onto the new stage. She performed the same routine she had shown Marcus. The clear taps echoed, and the audience watched in rapt silence. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. Marcus joined in, clapping harder than anyone. After the performance, Denise took the microphone. "Thank you, everyone," she said. "Center survived on faith, on hope, and on characters like you, our community, on one more person who believed in us." She gestured to Marcus, who stood at the back with a shy smile. "Thank you, Mr. Vale, for walking beside us." The crowd cheered again, and Marcus stepped forward, nodding with humility. That evening, as the sun dipped below the rooftops, Denise locked the door and paused on the steps. She looked back at the center and saw laughter inside as children and parents mingled. She felt a deep peace. She thought of how one dance at a gala had sparked this journey. She thought of Marcus, who turned a joke into a promise. She thought of the children whose dreams now had room to grow. And she knew this was only the beginning. The renovated community center glowed in the soft morning light as Denise arrived early to prepare for the day's lessons. The fresh paint on the walls seemed to hum with energy, and the new dance floor felt warm under her feet. She paused at the doorway, closing her eyes to remember the sound of laughter that had filled these rooms just a week before. Today, she would introduce a new program, Saturday workshops where children could invite their friends and families to share art and dance. She felt a flutter of excitement mixed with nervous anticipation. Inside, Denise arranged easels and canvas. On the long tables, she lined up paint jars by color, grouping reds with reds, blues with blues, so the children could see the range of choices. She tested the piano keys again. They all sounded clear and bright. She smiled, imagining the lessons that would unfold here. Marcus had promised to drop by to see the first workshop in action. She supported changed everything in Denise. Wanted to show him how far the center had come? As the clock neared 10, the children arrived in small groups, clutching sketchbooks and wearing casual clothes. Some ran inside, greeting Denise with enthusiastic hugs. Others hung back, shy smiles on their faces. Denise gathered them in a circle on the dance floor. "Welcome, everyone," she said. "Today we'll paint a story your story, and we'll learn a new dance step that shows what your painting means." She paused, watching their bright eyes. "And at the end, you can invite your family to join us." The children cheered softly. Denise guided them to their seats. She handed each child a brush and asked them to close their eyes. "Think of a happy moment," she said gently. "It could be a day at the park, a birthday party, or maybe a time you felt proud. Picture it in your mind." The children's hands lifted, brushes trembling as they dipped into paint. Denise moved among them, offering quiet words. "That's it." Let the color flow. Moments later, canvases burst with images, blue skies dotted with cotton-white clouds, fields of yellow flowers, smiling faces. A boy painted his puppy, chasing a ball. A girl painted herself receiving a medal at a school play. Denise knelt beside a shy child whose painting was still bare. "What are you thinking?" she asked softly. The child pointed to a spot on the floor. Denise nodded, then whispered, "You can start with one dot. One small idea can grow." Child pressed a dot of green paint onto the canvas, then added another, and soon a tree appeared. Denise smiled and moved on. Halfway through the painting session, a sleek black car rolled up outside. Denise looked through the window and saw Marcus stepping out. He carried a bouquet of bright sunflowers. Denise waved and stepped outside too. "Greet him. Good morning," she said, taking the flowers. "Thank you for coming," Marcus smiled. "These are for you and the children," he said. "Sunflowers always face the light." Denise felt a warm glow. "They will look beautiful on the tables." Back inside, Denise introduced Marcus to the group. "This is Mr. Vale," she said. The children waved shyly. Marcus knelt before them and said, "Your paintings are wonderful. I can see your happiness in every brushstroke." He walked among the easels, admiring each canvas. The children beamed with pride. Denise watched as Marcus paused by the painting of the tree. He turned to the child who drew it and said, "Tell me about your tree." The child explained that it was the tree where she and her grandmother sat to read stories. Marcus listened, carefully nodding with respect. After the painting, Denise led the children to the dance area. She clapped her hands to set a rhythm. "Now we'll translate your painting into movement," she said. "If your painting shows joy, think of steps that rise and fall like a happy heart. If it shows calm, think of smooth glides." The children practiced simple step, slide, spin, feeling the beat in their chests. Denise demonstrated a gentle spin, then a soft tap. The children followed, their faces alive with concentration. Marcus stood to the side, watching with admiration, held his hands together, and when a shy girl executed her step perfectly, he clapped and gave her a thumbs up. The girl's eyes lit up and she bowed deeply. Denise felt tears sting her eyes at the scene. This was more than dance or painting. It was confidence, hope, and community woven together. As the workshop ended, Denise invited the children's families to join them. Parents, siblings, and grandparents entered the room. Denise encouraged them to try painting and dancing alongside their children. Father took a brush and painted bold red strokes beside his daughter's gentle blues. A grandmother tapped her foot with her grandson, giggling as she tried to match his tempo. Denise moved among the families, offering guidance, sharing smiles. Marcus leaned in and said quietly, "This is magic." Denise nodded. "It's what happens when people share their gifts," she replied. "When we see each other's value, we grow." Marcus placed a hand on her arm. "I want everyone to see this," he said. "Let's hold a showcase next month. We'll invite the whole city." Denise's heart soared. She thought of the children, of their families, of the center's humble beginnings. "Yes," she said softly. "Let's do it." In the following days, Denise and Marcus planned the citywide showcase. They met with local businesses to secure space in a community hall. They designed posters with bright colors and childlike drawings. Denise enlisted volunteers to help with refreshments and setup. The children, too, contributed ideas. One boy suggested popcorn. Another girl suggested lemonade. Denise laughed at their excitement. She felt the same thrill she'd had the night she first danced at the gala, only now it was shared by many. On the morning of the showcase, Denise arrived at the hall to find it transformed. Tables held paintings. A stage awaited dancers. Banners read our stories in color and dance. Families streamed in, cameras ready. Denise stood backstage, heart pounding. Marcus appeared beside her, wearing a crisp shirt and a welcoming smile. "Are you ready?" he asked. Denise took a deep breath. "Yes," she said. The showcase opened with Denise's speech. She spoke in clear, simple words about the center's journey from a small room with chipped paint to this grand hall, filled with art and dance. She thanked Marcus for believing in her vision. She thanked the volunteers and families. When she finished, the audience rose in applause. Denise felt tears of joy and pride. The children then performed their dances in groups. One by one, they danced to music that matched their paintings. The audience watched in rapt silence. When the last child bowed, the room erupted in cheers. Parents hugged their children, friends clapped, and Denise saw Marcus wiping his eyes. He stood and led the applause, his face full of admiration. Later, as the hall emptied and volunteers packed up, Denise and Marcus walked through the rows of paintings. They paused at the tree painting. The child who drew it stood shyly beside them. Marcus knelt to speak to her. Denise watched her heart full. She knew that this child and every child here would carry this memory forever. That evening, as Denise closed the doors of the community center, she felt a calm satisfaction. The gentle hum of activity had quieted, but the echoes of laughter and applause lingered. She walked through the empty room, touching the walls that now held fresh color. She tapped the dance floor softly, Recalling the steps of the children, she closed her eyes and breathed deeply. Part 4 of Denise's true life story ended on a note of triumph and possibility. From a single step on a gala floor to the joy of an entire community, her journey showed that respect, kindness, and belief in others can transform lives. And as she locked the door, Denise knew that tomorrow would bring new dreams, new challenges, and new chances to dance once more. Denise stood in the quiet hall of the community center as the late afternoon sun painted long shadows on the floor. The room still carried faint traces of laughter and music from the day's showcase. She ran her hand along the smooth surface of the dance floor, remembering the children's bright smiles. The walls, now vibrant with fresh paint and new artwork, seemed to pulse with life even in silence. Denise felt a deep peace settle in her heart. She had dreamed of this place, worked for it, and watched it grow beyond her wildest hopes. Marcus's visit earlier that week had brought more than funding. It had brought belief. He joined her for one of the regular after-school sessions, sitting in a folding chair as children painted and danced around him. He whispered encouragements, took pictures on his phone to share with his friends, spoke about future plans to expand the program to other neighborhoods. His words had been humble. "You're the real hero here." Denise had blushed at the praise but felt it ring true. She knew the center's success rested on the children's courage to create, on parents who trusted her, and on volunteers who offered time and hope. That morning, Denise opened the doors to find a stack of letters on her desk. They were thank you notes from parents and children after the showcase. Each card held a child's drawing on the front and a handwritten message inside. "Thank you for helping me find my voice," one said. "I feel brave now," wrote another. Denise smiled through tears as she read each note. She placed them in a neat pile and powered up her computer to scan them for Marcus, who wanted to share their stories with his board. She thought of the power in simple words and how a child's thank you could mean more than any speech or promise. Later, Denise met with her team of volunteers to plan the next steps. They sat around a large table in the back room, surrounded by stacks of art, supplies, and dance shoes. Denise spoke in her usual clear, gentle way. "We have 2 new classrooms to set up," she said. "One for painting and one for music." She unfolded a map with empty rooms marked in bright green. "We'll need fresh paint, more brushes, and a small drum set for the musical room." She paused to let the volunteers share their ideas. One suggested starting a weekend family art club. Another offered to teach a simple guitar lesson. Denise felt her vision expand, fueled by the team's creativity. She thanked each person and promised to find the resources to make their ideas come true. In the months that followed, the center became a hub of creativity and community. On weekday afternoons, the hall rang with laughter as children learned to mix colors and follow rhythms. Parents joined in too, sketching beside their kids or tapping their feet to the beat. A local bakery donated cookies for snack time, and a retired teacher hosted a reading circle on Friday mornings. Every corner of the center pulsed with purpose. A shelf of painted tiles lined the entrance, each one a promise of hope. A small library held books donated by neighbors. Denise walked through it all, her heart full. She greeted each child by name, remembered their favorite colors, and celebrated every small success. One crisp morning, Denise received an unexpected invitation. A city council member had heard about the center and asked her to speak at a community meeting about the power of arts in education. Denise felt butterflies in her stomach. Public speaking had never been her strength, but she knew this was important. She practiced with Marcus, who helped her find clear words to share her story. "Speak from the heart," he said. On the day of the meeting, Denise stood at the podium in a crowded room. She began quietly telling her own story of arriving at the gala, of that first step on the ballroom floor, of teaching children in a worn-out room. Then she spoke of the center's growth, of how art and dance changed lives, and how a simple act of respect could spark something greater. The audience listened in silence, some nodding, others wiping tears. When she finished, applause filled the hall. Denise realized her story was bigger than her center. It was a story of community, respect, and the power of belief. Afterward, the council agreed to a small grant to support other centers like hers across the city. That evening, Denise stood on the dance floor with the first group of visiting center directors. She guided them through the steps she taught the children: tap, slide, spin. They followed her lead with awe, tapping their shoes in time. The directors smiled at each other, understanding how movement could build confidence. Denise felt the circle of support widen. Her center was no longer a single room. It was a spark for many more. As the year drew to a close, Denise prepared for the holiday celebration. She arranged chairs in a circle, wrapped small presents for each child, and strung lights along the walls. The children arrived in festive clothes, clutching homemade ornaments for the center's tree. Denise led them in a simple dance around the room, their feet tapping softly on the wood. They laughed at their own missteps and cheered each other on. Afterwards, they gave Denise a gift, a handmade scrapbook filled with photos and drawings from their time at the center. On the final page was a picture of Denise dancing at the gala, painted in bright emerald green. Below, in childish letters, were the words, "Our hero." Denise held the scrapbook to her chest, tears of joy streaming down her face. She looked at the children bright, hopeful, loved, and thought of how far they had come. Her dream had grown beyond her rooms and walls. It lived in each child's heart. She had become more than a teacher. She was a guide, a mentor, a friend. She knew challenges would come: funding changes, staff needs, new ideas to plan, but she felt ready. She had learned that change starts with one step, shared in kindness and respect. As the celebration ended and the children left with their families, Denise turned off the lights and locked the door. The center was quiet again, but its spirit was alive. She took one last look at the sparkling tree and whispered, "Thank you." She stepped outside into the cool night, breathing in the festive air. Above her, stars glimmered like paint splatters on a midnight canvas. Denise smiled, knowing her story would continue one step, one brushstroke, one dance at a time. In her heart, she carried the simple truth she had discovered: a single act of respect can change a life, community, and even the world.